So I was bored and noticed that our local self-hating gay Uncle Tom went live with another one of his pseudo-intellectual speeches on topics he is woefully ignorant about and felt the need to clarify some of his bullshit. To get this out of the way, let's clear the record. 1. The Clinton "don't ask, don't tell" mandate was a compromise to appease the Republican moral majority, whose agenda at that time and to a lesser extent now was to remove homosexuals from the military entirely. They have not evolved on this, and there is a large block of them that still support that idea. 2. The Republicans did not magically stop hating gay people after the passage of Obergefell versus Hodges, a case in which the court held that the 14th Amendment requires states to license and recognize same-sex marriage. The current Supreme Court that struck down Roe versus Wade has openly stated an interest in reviewing that law, and Antonin Scalia was not subtle in his dissent. 3. Once again, this 52-year-old self-loathing gay freak show speaks for a demographic he clearly does not belong to, nor does he understand. Why does this mental midget think he has any room or place speaking on behalf of a majority white, evangelical voting bloc? I can easily go into Louisville, Kentucky or Arkansas and no one will bat an eye. You will get your ass kicked, if not for the antlers but your dazzling personality.
Line. But I think anybody from a different community is respectful to you. How can you hate them? They're just people as well.
People find a way. But I mean, you got to remember too, and this is where I think the Democrats try to gain more credit for themselves than they deserve, is even the leaders for a while thought the same way you did. Hillary Clinton, Obama, they all thought the same way you did. And it wasn't until about the 2010s that they started to finally come around to supporting gay rights.
You're a faggot and Christ hates you.
What am I?
You're a faggot.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, get this right now. You're a faggot.
Put some baby oil on my crap.
Women's clothing in front of children. He's a dirty
Come on.
faggot. Yeah, get this right now. You're a faggot.
Put some baby oil on my crap.
Women's clothing in front of children. He's a dirty
Come on.
faggot.
And so that was even the norm for Democrats back in the day. And they've evolved, and they act like Republicans are these cretins that are still living in that time, when Republicans have also evolved, and the polling shows it. But the Republicans still are painted as these homophobes, while the Democrats try to take credit for all.
Woo! Call the cops. Freedom of speech. Take the MAGA flags down to Goodwill.
God hates fags like you. You're gonna burn in hell, faggot.
Will you come and grind me down there? Woo! The soul! I like to take it in my MAGA hole.
This evolution they did on the topic.
What happened for me? What happened for me was having a very good friend of mine, well, a family friend, okay, a good friend, come out. And I mean, I love this person. Like, you know, I've known this person forever. So how can I hate somebody who feels differently about their orientation? What I'm trying to say is that I think when people have a personal connection to somebody from a different orientation, it changes the way they feel. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, right? When the father finds out his son or daughter is that, you know, gay, and this is, ripping the door off. Or you can embrace it and say, let me understand how to be accommodating to your lifestyle. So it's just different. Everybody processes things differently. And I think it's how you were raised. And I also think it's your age, your maturity level. I do.
Oh,
but
thanks.
No. But Jeff, I do agree.
Well, these are facts. Clinton did backtrack on "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," so you can disagree with reality if you want. And they did not support marriage equality. They came out opposing when we were first. I was a marriage equality advocate when we were first trying to get marriage equality. Obama came out against it. The Clintons came out against it. This is not shit I'm making up. You can Google all this.
Is your weekly guide to the conspiracy theories, rumors, and sometimes truths that lurk in the margins of the internet. On this week's Debunked, Was Nancy Reagan a great advocate for those suffering from AIDS in the 1980s? Now, this past week, Nancy Reagan died. May she rest in peace. And Secretary Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, leading presidential candidate, said that Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan were indeed helpful in the cause of fighting HIV and AIDS. Let me read what she said this past Friday. She said, quote, "Because of both President and Mrs. Reagan, in particular Mrs. Reagan, we started a national conversation. When before nobody would talk about it, nobody wanted anything to do about it, end quote." And she went on to describe the quote unquote very effective low-key advocacy and quote unquote something I really appreciated with regards to Nancy Reagan's response to the HIV/AIDS crisis. Now, I don't remember the 1980s. I was alive for part of it, but I was not following politics. I didn't know who Ronald Reagan was. But for people who went through that era and were activists on behalf of the LGBT community, who were responding to the front lines of this emerging horrific public health crisis that gripped that community in the 1980s and many other communities, this description seemed to ring hollow. One of the first places to look at for a sort of objective understanding of what was happening would be Ronald Reagan's own Surgeon General. That's right, C. Everett Koop, who some of you may remember from a very awkward Ali G interview from several years ago. And C. Everett Koop had the following to say about the Reagan administration's response to AIDS. He said, quote, "Because the transmission of AIDS is primarily understood to be primarily in the homosexual population and with those who abused intravenous drugs, the president's advisors," he went on to say, "took a stand that they are only getting what they justly deserve," end quote. And in fact, apparently, Rock Hudson, who was a closeted actor, who was later came out of the closet, who was a victim of AIDS, and was a friend of the Reagans, apparently did not get support from the couple, even on a personal level. So basically, you had a massive crisis that was ignored by an administration placating the prejudices of, unfortunately, many Americans at the time. Hillary Clinton has since walked those statements back, and some people suggest that within the context of the Reagan administration, Nancy Reagan was more on the side of doing something to respond to the AIDS crisis. But clearly, neither she nor her husband had any type of admirable, positive, or necessary response to the greatest public health crisis facing America in the 1980s. So, was Nancy Reagan a great advocate on this issue? Did she start a national conversation? Perhaps by ignoring it, as some people have pointed out, but certainly not by encouraging one. And so that is debunked.
You know what I'm talking about? I was there. I lived it.
What are you doing? You got a flag, you're screaming for a felon. We're all doing ridiculous shit today. I like to take it in the MAGA hole.
You're a faggot and Christ hates you.
What am I?
You're a faggot.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, get this right now. You're a faggot.
Put some baby oil on my
You're
crap.
women's clothing in front of children. He's a dirty
Come on.
faggot.
Woo! Call the cops. Freedom of speech. Take the MAGA flags down to Goodwill.
God hates fags like you. You're gonna burn in hell, faggot.
Will you come and grind me down there? Woo! The soul. I like to take it in my MAGA hole.